Hey, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast here in Washington, D.C. I'm the newsman, Sam Sachs. Good morning to everyone. We made it to the Friday show. And we need to wrap things up quickly today. I'm competing later in the Air Guitar World Championships in Finland. So wish me luck on my rendition of Sonata Arctica's Full Moon. And we begin in Hawaii, where the state's main electricity company is facing a flood of lawsuits over its alleged role in sparking the wildfire that destroyed the city of Lahaina on the island of Maui earlier this month. On Thursday, Maui County sued the for-profit energy provider Hawaiian Electric, alleging negligence by the company for not taking measures to prevent its electrical systems from sparking a wildfire. Investigations are ongoing, but it's believed that a Hawaiian Electric power line was brought down by high winds and sparked the worst wildfire in the U.S. in more than 100 years. The blaze burned down more than 2,000 buildings, or almost 90% of Lahaina. At least 115 people are dead, but about 400 are still unaccounted for. Fire is estimated to have caused more than $5 billion in damages. It's alleged that Hawaiian Electric was aware of the weather conditions and the likelihood that a fire could be sparked, and that it should have preemptively powered down some of the grid to avoid the risk. Recent reporting revealed that the utility was aware of the risks of wildfires going back to 2019, but did not make the necessary investments in recent years to prevent them, instead focusing on more electrical generation and maximizing profit for shareholders. From the Wall Street Journal, quote, a 2020 management audit of the company found that its enterprise risk analysis was largely focused on financial risk with limited consideration of operational and business risk. And the division within the company that oversaw power line operations had significant management problems. It added, quote, Henry Curtis, who leads an environmental and community group that regularly weighs in on utility projects, said Hawaiian Electric officials told him privately that they didn't believe Hawaii was prone to the type of devastating wildfires roaring through California. The utility officials thought the state's parched grasslands were less of an urgent threat than California's vast and dry timberlands, he said. Well, that turned out to be spectacularly wrong. There is precedent to utility companies' negligence maintaining their electric systems sparking deadly fires. The 2018 Camp Fire that erased the town of Paradise, California, and killed 84 people was caused by aging power lines maintained by utility giant PG&E. The company sought bankruptcy protections in order to pay out over $25 billion in settlements after the fire. Hawaiian Electric is already hiring consultants who specialize in restructuring to ensure that the company and its investors don't get wiped out. Its stock price has already been cut in half since the fire, and its credit rating downgraded to junk. You see, that's what happens when you burn down the homes of your customers. Progressive Democrats in the House are urging leadership to pass emergency legislation to protect working people from the summer's historic and deadly heat waves. Lawmakers want a package that includes two things. First, a heat-based moratorium on utility shutoffs, so no turning off people's water and electricity because they're behind on their bills. The legislation should also increase funding for low-income household assistance. Lawmakers also want to establish cooling centers and drinking water facilities for at-risk populations and workers. The demands were put in a letter to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the Democrats' Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Reading from it now, quote, we have a duty to take decisive action that achieves both short-term relief and addresses systemic causes of the climate emergency fueling the heat waves. On that latter point, the lawmakers also called for 3 additional actions. First, the phasing out of fossil fuels. Next, a permanent ban on utility shutoffs year-round. And third, more funding for distributed renewable energy systems, and climate resilient, affordable public water systems. Reps Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, and Rashida Tlaib organized the letter, and it was signed by an additional 22 lawmakers. And finally, the mugshot dropped. Former President Trump turned himself into Fulton County authorities on Thursday night, where he was booked, fingerprinted, had his picture taken, and then released on a $200,000 bail. Trump now has an inmate number in Georgia. It's P0113589. Although we can't really be sure that's actually him because the jail records list Trump's height and weight at 6'3", 215 pounds. And there's no way that motherfucker weighs just 215 pounds. Sorry. It was subsequently reported that Trump's team provided the information about his height, weight, and hair color, which was labeled as blonde or strawberry, to the jail ahead of time to speed up the process. Trump used the occasion of his arrest to return to Twitter to post a picture of his mugshot with the words, quote, "Election interference, never surrender." But you did surrender, which is how we got the mugshot, dipshit. God. Results are expected later today on the UAW strike authorization vote against the big three automakers. The union is currently in negotiations with the car makers Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis over a new labor contract. The current one expires September 14th, and assuming the strike authorization is approved, a work stoppage could happen as soon as then. Already a handful of local UAW branches have voted and passed a strike authorization with over 90% support. It took a legitimate strike threat from the Teamsters to get UPS to meet their demands. And UAW President Shawn Fain, who is seeking a 40% increase in compensation for workers, wants to send the same message to Detroit, that the union is willing to shut it down to get what it's owed. The automakers have reaped billions in profits this year alone. In the meantime, the UAW did rack up an important win for its electric vehicle workers. On Thursday, it announced that workers at Ultium Cells, which makes electric car batteries for General Motors, secured a new tentative agreement that includes a significant pay increase of $3 to $4 an hour and includes thousands of dollars in back pay. Workers will vote on ratifying the agreement in the coming days. In December of last year, workers at Ultium won their union election to become the first in the nation to organize a car battery plant. Now, they're on the verge of getting their first contract. Rich Dick Eradication Brigade, reporting for duty. Let's check out those nominations. Would you be surprised to learn that Rona nominated all the goddamn landlords? Well, they did, as did a few others, including one specific nomination for New York City landlords. There's a nomination for the CEOs at the Low Wage 100, the 100 companies on the S&P 500 index that have the lowest median wages. On yesterday's show, we talked about that report from the Institute of Policy Studies that identified how these companies are showering their executives and shareholders with hundreds of billions of dollars while paying their workers poverty wages. So yeah, very deserving of a nomination. And we got an anti-nomination this week for Rudy Giuliani, who, it was noted, is broke as fuck and now getting bail bonds like the rest of us would have to get if we got arrested. Rudy did, however, fly on a private jet to Atlanta to turn himself in, so I'm not entirely sure he's actually broke. Either way, we'll let him slide for now because, in the end, this week's Rich Dicks are Nantucket Fundraiser attendees. The youth-led group Climate Defiance crashed a ritzy Nantucket Island fundraiser for Massachusetts Democratic Governor Maura Healey. The activists demanded that the governor, who's received contributions from the oil industry, stop all new fossil fuel development in the state, given the crisis of climate change. And the wealthy liberals in attendance had an absolute meltdown in response. Take a look.
The first step of the transition is to ban new fossil fuels. Will you ban new fossil fuel infrastructure?
I think it's enough.
Guys, I appreciate it's democracy.
End fossil fuels, Maura. End fossil fuels. End fossil fuels, Maura. End fossil fuels.
You've assaulted us.
How did I assault you? There is no future. Get out! The fossil fuel industry bought you out. The fossil fuel industry gave you $50,000. End fossil fuels, Maura. End fossil fuels.
Longer than
Fossil fuels. And fossil fuels.
Touch you.
And fossil fuels. Fossil fuels.
You've hurt your cause. You've hurt your cause.
No new fossil fuels.
No new fossil fuels. We've spoken to her before, and she's ignored us.
You have no idea how to get things done.
It's,
You have no idea how to get things done.
we're afraid because our lives are going to end.
My lives too. We're all the same age.
No, we're not. I'm 20. How
All
are
right, fine. I
you?
have kids that are 9.
Okay.
You have absolutely no idea how to get things
Can
done.
you tell me what are you doing to help
No
them?
new fossil fuels.
What are you doing to
I have
help them?
solar everything. I have solar in my
Is your
house.
individual
Just-
act going to help us? No, the act of someone in power is
If you
going
had half a
to.
brain, you would understand
We
how
have
to get
no
things done.
money. Maura has power, and she can help save us, but
But
she's
your
not.
rudeness prevents you
We're
from
gonna
talking
die.
to her.
Who cares how rude we are?
I don't mind
And
if
the
you
people
die.
in
I'm
Nantucket
gonna die a lot
love
quicker
us.
than you.
Damn, you know what they say about scratching a liberal? Well, that scene produced a couple worthy rich dick nominations. Here's one for the guy at the end of the video who berated the young climate activists and said, quote, "I don't mind if you die." Yeah, that was right after he tried to explain how he put solar panels on his roof so he shouldn't have to be subjected to this. Let's also not forget about the lady in the video screaming, "Get out! Get out!" into the camera. I'm guessing she prides herself as a compassionate progressive, but the moment her party gets interrupted, she throws a fucking tantrum. Maybe she's also a landlord. Who knows? The real dishonors have to go to this guy, who at first tried to dismiss the protesters by claiming that he's been a climate activist for longer than they've been alive, and they're doing it wrong. He then gets mad later and threatens to start touching the climate defiance protesters. Well, it was discovered online that that guy is actually a fossil fuel lobbyist named Michael Stratton. So, not exactly a climate change activist. Naturally, he was nominated this week as well. The climate defiance protest perfectly captured the limits of the liberal political imagination and how resistant they are to the state actions necessary to stop runaway global warming. And it's not because they don't care about their grandkids' lives. They probably do, just not as much as they care about their own personal convenience in keeping polite company with others in their class who might very well be fossil fuel lobbyists. How dare the youth criticize me? I voted for Obama twice and would have a third time. Nantucket fundraiser attendees, you are this week's Rich Dicks. All right, friends, the show ends this morning with another sunrise from Colorado. It was sent in by Matt in Greeley. Enjoy. Thank you, Matt. That's the show. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please sign up for Means TV if you haven't yet. There's a 7-day free trial going on right now. And subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. One day capitalism will fall. Until then, we'll be right here. See you next week.